Hi, I'm here with Sioban Harnett. She's the viticulturist at Cloudy Bay. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Excellent. We're going to be talking in the show just about viticulture and what exactly a viticulturist does. What do you do?
Essentially, I make sure that the right volumes of the right varieties in the right style are delivered in time to the winery.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that you're out picking grapes, or are you choosing what grapes get planted where? Or
well, it can start from site selection and sourcing. For Cloudy Bay, half of our vineyards are estate grown, so they're our own vineyards, and the other half are with our contract growers. We have 7 contract growers. So it's liaising with our growers and cruising around, managing the vineyard managers and talking and discussing with the winemakers.
The winemakers get all the glory. You know, they are the pretty boys of the wine industry, really. Do you feel like you play second fiddle to them at Cloudy Bay?
No, not for a minute, really. They're a pretty good bunch. You're quite right. I think it's the perception of the industry, and the winemakers are so often in the market and often are articulate and the primary sort of ambassadors for a lot of wineries. But I think a lot of, all good winemakers know that they have to have the fruit behind them, and whether it's a vineyard manager or a viticulturist that they have, that is essential to quality wine production.
What sort of training have you had, Siobhan?
I've got a degree in agricultural science, and then I went on and did a master's specifically in viticulture, and I worked as a viticulturist for a while. And then for me, I was probably a little different. I stopped and did an MBA, and then I went back to viticulture. So I've taken the very long way around it.
Yeah, MBA back to viticulture.
Exactly.
Do you like being outside?
I do, very much. Just on the warm, sunny days.
What's the worst thing about the job?
Oh, I can't really think about what's
Cellar
the worst
work,
thing about my job. Oh, yeah, well, I don't have to do cellar work. I think early on in my training, when you're working around all departments, I did work in the cellar for a little bit and knew instantly that I just wanted to get back outside because it was kind of damp and cool, and you were incredibly responsible for all this fruit that you knew someone had spent their year growing. So, yeah, I was keen to get back out into the vineyard.
What are the main sort of elements of the year from a viticulturalist point of view?
We start our pruning generally in the beginning of June, and that can go through until early September, sometimes mid-September. And then there is spring activities, a lot of mowing. We start spraying, and we start wire lifting in November. We continue that through to December and start trimming our canopies.
What's wire lifting?
Well, we have these 2 sets on either side of the canopy that are movable wires that essentially chase all the shoot growth up the post, and they sit there and support the summer's growth, so that you end up with a very tall, thin canopy from row to row. If you look across the vineyard in Marlborough, you know, the vineyards should look like a series of radiator fins, thin, open, and well ventilated. That's what you're aiming for.
Yep.
It's quite a manipulated canopy.
Okay, so you do your pruning, your wire lifting, and then
later on, from around December is the month of flowering for us with our Sauvignon. We will leaf pluck, mechanically leaf pluck often, which is removing the leaves around the bunch zone. And we will often, depending on the kind of season we have, we'll repeat that. We'll repeat the trimming and leaf plucking through until harvest, which for us is mostly we pick our Sauvignon in the month of April.
Do you do a lot of spraying?
Not a great deal, probably once every 2 weeks, definitely a sulphur regime to manage us powdery mildew. We have key times of the season when we manage botrytis, and botrytis is probably the disease that could potentially harm us the most. It's a disease of warm, wet conditions, and although botrytis mold is something that we certainly want in our late harvest Riesling, we can't tolerate it in our other varieties. The mold itself produces an enzyme called lacase, and lacase in your wine will mean that the wine will lose its fruitiness, it will lose its stability and soundness, it will prematurely age in the bottle, and it's generally not very charming.
Oh, okay. So, but in sweet wines, it's quite a good thing. So,
yeah, it is.
Botrytis wines are known to age very well.
I know. Don't ask me to explain it. I'll have to hit one of the winemakers up at work about why that is. Another thing about botrytis wines is they're often quite high in residual sugar, or they can be quite wine, and that's a bit of a preservative also. So maybe that's an idea, but it's a good question that I should go back and ask before I hit the road internationally. Make a boob of myself on the radio.
Exactly. What about picking? What are the key drivers maybe for picking, say, Sauvignon Blanc?
Sav for us is really interesting because the fruit just before harvest tastes exactly on the vine as it will do once the wine is finished fermenting. It's really transparent and it's quite exciting. So prior to harvest, you're driving around looking at all the blocks and tasting berries on the vine. We take a little field sample, which is about a ½ kilo bag, and take that back to the lab for analysis. We look at percentage sugar and titratable acidity and pH, really standard parameters for many wine regions. But we also eat a lot of fruit, which means we don't have a big dinner at the end of the night, and you're perennially full. And we keep a note on the flavour spectrum that the fruit's at, and that's for the Sauvignon. That's a big driver in the decision making process of when to pick. We also look at how clean and healthy the block is and keep a really strong eye on the weather map, because in our climate it's cool and we do have about 50 mils of rain every month. So we're sort of typically during harvest we're often ducking and diving through natural rain events.
So Cloudy Bay is quite known for Sauvignon Blanc. You also do a sparkling Pylorus. What are you picking on then?
Well, our non-vintage Pylorus is predominantly Chardonnay, and then our vintage Pylorus is predominantly Pinot Noir. We don't have any Pinot Meunier. In fact, there's not a lot of Meunier in Marlborough. I don't know why. I think it was a lot to do with the clonal selections that made it out to New Zealand and how they performed in our climate. It's quite a different brief for growing sparkling base, because when it goes into the winery, it takes a lot of time, and there are a lot of different winemaking processes that go on. Essentially, our role in the vineyard is to give the winery a lovely blank base wine canvas. So we're looking for high fresh acid, sugars that aren't too ripe, because of course it has to go then through the secondary ferment, which can, push the alcohol, and increase your potential alcohol there. So, but not a lot of flavour development. We don't want overtly fruity base wine. We want a nice blank, tight canvas built to last, that's delivered, and it has to be very clean and very sound.
What about Pinot Noir for still wine?
That's quite different. Pinot Noir is really sensitive. It's a little like cooking an egg. For a while it can be underdone, and then you turn your back and it's rubbery and overdone. So it has a very small window of opportunity. You have to be very vigilant. A lot of it, we don't want our sugars to race away on us. We don't want sort of an alcohol rage going on. You have to keep a very close eye on the flavours, and they're very subtle in the berry.
Do you get flavours that land up in the wine, or are you picking on different flavours?
The Pinot Noir is a kind of interesting combination in the field. There is the flavour in the fruit, but there's also the condition and the flavours and the tannins and the skins and pips. That's equally as important. So, you'll often be eating the Pinot Noir berries and then opening them up in your fingers, and you'll be checking that the little pip has actually gone completely brown and lignified, and there's a sort of a gelatinous coating, a lot like a tomato seed on a Pinot Noir berry. And as it gets riper, that gelatinous coating, it's not gelatinous really, I don't know what it is, it's kind of slippery and slimy, but that will degrade, and that gives you a good indication that things are moving along. And then when you rub your thumbnail across the skin, it should start to express all the lovely, rich red colour. So well, you're not far away now, and you can build up a short list and start, knocking on the winemakers' doors to come out and have a look, so that we can all be in agreement when we harvest the blocks.
We touched on spraying in the vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking earlier, and you mentioned you're doing a new program or new type of pesticide control.
Okay, in our climate we don't actually apply a lot of insecticides. We don't have a lot of insect pests. We have a very cold winter, which is pretty hard on an insect, and we're not a terribly hot season, and because they're little cold-blooded creatures, they require a lot of heat to get their populations going seriously. So one pest that we do have is a little caterpillar called a leaf roller, which grows into a light brown apple moth, and they're not a problem, but they create a mess of dead tissue, and botrytis likes to live on dead tissue. So we will keep an eye on those levels. If they spike, we can spray and manage the spike in populations. But we have a range of nicer, newer compounds now that are available to us.
Excellent. Canopy management, because New Zealand's known quite well for different canopy styles, canopy management.
Yeah.
What are the main elements of canopy management?
Well, the idea of it and the drive behind it, and the reason why New Zealanders are always banging on about it, really, is that it's manipulating a vine into quite an odd and artificial shape, and it's a shape that guarantees evenness and control. Vines in their natural state, generally they'll live in a forest, and they'll start off on the forest floor, and they'll cruise up the trunk of an obliging tree, and then get up onto the top of the canopy of the existing trees and all their friends, and then they will just lie on the top of the forest, on the top of the trees, and they'll grow along there. So what we're doing quite artificially is training them up onto a wire, and with the pruning, we lay down fresh cane along that wire, and then the following spring, shoots come out of those canes, and we artificially send them upwards. And we have two sets of sort of chasing movable wires that follow them up to the top of the canopy. We stop them at about 2.2 metres from the ground, and then we will put what we call a trimmer, which takes the top and sides and trims it up. We can't let the canopies get too tall, because physically they'll tip over or fall out of the canopy. They'll snap off at the base. They'll also start shading the row next to them.
Yep, sure.
So we sort of take the top and sides off, and we'll revisit them. Sometimes you turn around. It can depend on how warm your summer is being, how aggressive that vegetative growth is. But you could revisit your vineyard anywhere from between 6 days to 2.5 weeks, and you'd have to retrim it.
You don't want to take too many leaves off, though, because the leaves are driving the sugars.
Exactly, yep. The fully expanded deep green leaves, they're net contributors. They produce more sugars than they use, and any excess will go into the growing tips where there are baby leaves, fully expanded, or they will go into developing fruit. That's another sink for sugars.
Yep.
And then further on in the autumn, the vine starts sending signals around its finest body that says send some carbohydrate or sugar storage down into the trunk for storage over winter, and down into the roots also.
Yep. You were mentioning earlier sometimes people trim the canopy too much.
Mm-hmm. You can set the trimmer. You can set it to have a thick hedgy canopy or a very fine open canopy. In our climate in Marlborough, it's very sunny but very cool. Doesn't often get over 30 degrees, and the nights are very cool. Humidity is largely quite low, and our sunlight levels are quite high. So we aim to have quite an open canopy, quite thin. Doesn't take long it's not too difficult to see the row over through it. If we had very thick, dense canopies, you'd have an increase in humidity, and then you'd get issues with botrytis. You'd also have very shaded, nettly, steely, unripe flavours in your fruit in our climate.
With a heavy canopy?
With a dense one. Yeah, you sort of, put your arm in up to the elbow, and there may be scratch around, there may be some fruit in there.
What happens if you have hardly any canopy at all?
Well, two things. If it's a warm season and you've got a sort of an aromatic white wine like Sauvignon Blanc, you can end up physically getting the bunches, the temperature will go up, the flavours will advance, and they'll kind of they'll come out too soon in our autumn or late summer, so they'll evolve too quickly. You can get phenolic, you can get a little bit of sunburn, not a great deal in our region. You can get a lot of sort of phenolic development, a lot of it's kind of loss of the ideal flavours that you want.
And the other type of thing, you said, talk about trimmers. They're just big hedge trimmers on tractors, really, aren't they?
They're sort of often either single-sided or over the row.
Sometimes people want to expose the grapes or not necessarily expose the grapes. What's going on there?
Yeah, there's a way of not only trimming the vines and taking the tops and sides off to making it more even and controllable. You can also get in with either by hand or a specialist piece of equipment that's called a leaf plucker, and remove the leaves specifically around the bunches. And if you're having a cool season, or you're wanting to evolve and develop and expose your bunches to the sun to warm up and ripen faster, you can mechanically leaf pluck, and so you'll end up, if you go through Marlborough in March, or April, you'll look at the vineyards and you'll actually see a chafering from about the bottom quarter or the bottom third of the canopy, and you'll see the leaves have been chafed away, and the bunches will be hanging there and expanding and ripening.
So do you use leaf plucking a wee bit to speed things up and slow them down?
We do, and depending on the kind of season we're having, whether it's a warm advanced season or a cool season where we're falling behind, we'll sort of ratchet up how many leaves we remove from around the bunch zone. If we're having a really warm season, we'll often just trim and leave it at that. If we're having a cool season, we'll mechanically leaf pluck and repeat that and keep peeling it away. A good rule of thumb is that you should walk down the row and be able to easily see 60% of the fruit that's on the vine.
There's different types of trellising systems out there. What's quite popular in Marlborough, and what really forms the decision on the trellising systems?
Well, in Marlborough you see a lot of what's called VSP, which stands for vertical shoot positioned, and that VSP has been cane pruned. So we have to cane prune because we're a cool season. We don't seem to have the heat and the consequent bud fertility that we could actually spur prune.
What's the difference between cane prune and spur prune?
Well, from the summer, a cane is the result of last season's growth. Mm-hmm. And it will often...
After you've pruned away everything else, you're left with a couple of shoots, effectively, from last season.
A little bud that grows over a season will produce a shoot, which then hardens off and becomes a cane.
Yep.
And we lay down up to about 4 canes for Sauvignon Blanc, typically in Marlborough. There's no shortcutting around that. People, in some varieties and some climates, you can spur prune and it works really well. Unfortunately...
And a spur is...
A spur is like a very short cane.
Okay.
So you'll leave lots of little spurs over the vine.
Yep.
But a cane, for us, we only leave 4 canes, and each cane has about 12 to 15 buds. So the idea there is that your buds per vine are the important thing. That's the important. You don't want to leave too many buds per vine because then your potential yield will get too great. And for us in a cool climate, we cannot afford to have heavy green crops.
Doesn't ripen and you get
exactly,
all those green herbaceous flavours.
So we have the predominance of our canopies are vertically shoot positioned. Now with VSP or the cane pruning that goes with it, you can actually choose to have one upward set of canopy growth, which is what most people elect to have, or you can divide it in half, like putting a comb down your hair and parting it on either side, and that's called Scott Henry training system. It was very popular in the mid-90s, really caught hold. Mm-hmm. It's been an important contributor to Cloudy Bay. Probably what has happened now is that agricultural engineering has evolved and we have quite swish machines, mechanical leaf pluckers with little robotic sensors that you can have different settings to have a very firm leaf pluck or a very soft and gentle one. So you get a lot of freedom and higher accuracy. So Scott Henry, we sort of keep a couple of blocks around because we have fond memories of it and it's cute and it's part of our story. But we actually tend to VSP most of our canopies now.
Okay, so that's your trellising system's now changing because of modern techniques in terms of equipment and managing costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
or just getting a more reliable result, more accurate result. There's also another training system in Marlborough.
Fruit exposure in a cool climate is obviously quite important in terms of ripening things. What happens if you go too far?
Well, in a warm season... It can really work against you, and sometimes people get very enthusiastic. They mean well, but sometimes you see some vineyards getting into a bit of a habit where they will denude the vine of every single leaf around the bunch, and kind of around the traps that's referred to not so pleasantly as a full Brazilian. So if someone comes and tells you that they think that your canopy is looking like it's had a Brazilian, it's actually a bit of a bit of a barbed comment. But you can see them occasionally, yeah.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there, Siobhan. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.